Bush and John Costco. Jeff is off on assignment, so we will talk with him and check back in with him later. But we always got to give it to you guys. We got to give you the PFF grades. We'll first to get into offense, man. Offense, how did they show? Browns did get the victory 27-14, but no offensive touchdowns. We'll talk about the offensive line. We'll talk about the receiver group and the running backs on offense in terms of PFF grades. Then we'll pivot in the second segment to the defensive side of the football. That's where they had most of the production. You had sacks, you had returns, fumble returns, you had pickoffs, pick sixes. We ain't seen that in a long time. We'll talk about the grades and who really showed up and showed out on the defense. And then finally, we'll go ahead and pivot and talk about what everybody wants to talk about. Deshaun Watson obviously struggled. How bad did he struggle? John Costco will tell us exactly how bad he struggled with his PFF grades for Deshaun Watson and how he can get better next week as well. It's all coming up on this edition of the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Brown podcast. G. Bush, I'm here. Jeff is on assignment today. He'll be back tomorrow, but we're still going to go ahead and give you the episodes that we always deliver, and that is the PFF grades with John Costco, Pro Football Focus. Make sure you check out his work and make sure you check us out every single Tuesday. Usually it is every single Tuesday or Monday for the PFF grades that we deliver here on the Locked On Brown podcast. Let's get right off into this thing, John. Let's start with the offense. Let's get right into the offense. And you look at it on offense. I take a look and I say the team moved the ball a little bit in the beginning, but they never really quite got the running game going. They never really looked comfortable with the pocket and protection. And up front with the offensive line, they really didn't. I wouldn't say they were game busters. They really didn't open up enough holes up front. On the offensive end of the ball game, what was it that you saw that kind of that gave you pause, or what you saw in the game?
Yeah, I mean, it was a struggle all around on the offensive side, and I think part of it is you look at how Kevin Stefanski has been with the quarterbacks in the past, where their first games he's kind of feeling them out. They're feeling him out in terms of like getting in, procedure stuff of getting plays in and out, and then getting comfortable in that pocket. And Baker Mayfield's first game with Kevin Stefanski was a 38-7 blowout against the Ravens. Jacoby Brissett's was a win against the Panthers this year, but Jacoby Brissett looked bad in that process. And this one obviously was not a good outlook for the offense. And I think with Watson, obviously there's the accuracy issues that he had. So when you can't move the ball really very well in the passing game, it's hard to do anything well because there were passes to be had there, and it would have helped to open up the running game on a consistent basis. And yeah, they had 174 net rushing yards in this game, but you wouldn't say they had an effective running game. And I think the offensive line has kind of started to really struggle since losing Ethan Pochik. And it's when you lose your center, the center is kind of like the quarterback of that offensive line. He gets, if you have a guy that's cerebral there, he can get you set and in the right protections and just moving in, all in one sync. And Froholt he's not a center in this league. He's definitely not a starting center in this league. And so he's kind of trying to learn on the fly. So there are a lot of issues on the offensive side, and it was just kind of good to see the offense and special teams kind of picking up.
Yeah, let's talk about a little bit about Jedrick Wills. When you watch Jedrick, I had the opportunity to talk to either Joe Thomas and John Greco, former Browns offensive lineman, and when you look at it, they told me the same thing. There's some times where Jedrick Wills, if he misses assignment or if he gets beat, or if he gets to the line of scrimmage and he gets out of position, he has two things that he tends to do. He tends to grab and hold guys, just reach out and gank somebody. And then he tends to stop in the middle of the play. Instead of going to find somebody to hit hard, instead of going to find somebody to put hands on and be aggressive and still do those things, he's still hesitating and just stopping in the middle of the play. Have you seen some of that type of stuff on film? And how have you thought he's played so far this year?
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of him in a nutshell, where it's like, um, when he misses a block, he kind of just stands there and looks, and it's like, well, sorry, it's like look out, and that's kind of like the lookout block, that's um, it's awful, and he gave up 5 pressures in this game. He just was not. I mean, he was not good. He had a 23.1 pass protection grade in this game. And generally, from what we've seen from him this year, is that there's been a regression. And a lot of times, what you see from players is in the third, especially offensive linemen, in their third year, is a leap forward. And we're not seeing that, which is unfortunate. This game was a 41.1. It was his second worst game of the year after the Ravens game, in week 7, which was a 32.9. Yeah, he's kind of this showing to be like like a negative piece on that offensive line. And you're not going to move off from him from this year, but you are definitely probably going to be looking, hey, what is our future at the left tackle position? Because this guy is not proving to be the guy yet. Because you generally, like I said, see the massive leap in not a massive leap, but a sizable leap in year 3. We saw that with Wyatt Teller last year, 2 years ago. And we're just not seeing anything from Jedrick Wills from a progression standpoint. Like he looks like the same guy that we saw as a rookie, but actually kind of worse, because he was actually solid in pass protection as a rookie, and it was his run game that was a kind of a struggle. And then we saw a good, a decent improvement last year in the run game, but then a drop in his pass protection, and we've seen another drop in his pass protection. So, for me, it's got the potential of being a bust, and he definitely needs to get more. Like when you miss a block, like the worst thing you can do is just stand there and like do nothing. Like go find work. It's the net. There's the old adage of find work, and he doesn't do that.
Yeah, so. He's very disappointing at this point. Footwork, I would like to see a nasty streak. His motor seems low, and it doesn't seem like because I don't know him. We don't know him. We don't know what goes on inside, but it just doesn't seem like he has that desire to go out there and be dominant. It's just like, okay, I start for the Browns. I'm there. I'm the 10th pick. I went to Alabama. Everybody, nobody care about that. Yeah. Like, this is you 3 years in. You might be out of here. Let me ask a question. Go ahead.
Sorry, it just doesn't look like you're not going to. If we know what he is in this league, he doesn't have an aggressive nature to him. He's a passive guy. That's not going to change. You're not going to change that in 1 year. So.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest indictments and one of the biggest labels you can get, that is you can't shake. You are who you are. Let me ask you this question. We go to the chat. Pee Wee's Dog Pound says, at Locked On Browns. By the way, thank you for reaching out and giving us a question. Do you think Chubb will still face stacked boxes until Deshaun Watson proves he can beat them with his arm? Your thoughts on that? I've seen it does look like it's a little bottled up top. Still looks like teams are selling out to stop the run with Nick Chubb. Do you think that opens up as Deshaun Watson develops?
Yes, I mean that's gonna. It's the pass opens up the run. So if you're not afraid of the quarterback to beat you over the top, or just in general, like you're going to stack the box to stop the run and prove to us that you can beat us with the pass. Because defenses for 100 years in the NFL have been trying to stop the run, and every single defensive coordinator goes out there, you have to stop the run, and they will do that until you go, okay, the pass game is more important to stop on this team because they have an elite level passer. Like you see light boxes against Patrick Mahomes all the time because nobody is afraid of that. I mean, people like the run game is effective for the Chiefs because of Patrick Mahomes. So if Watson gets back to his form that we've seen him in the NFL for 4 years, the first 4 years of his career, you will start seeing that type of level of holes open up because you're starting to see 5 and 6 man boxes for Nick Chubb because teams are going to be deadly afraid that Watson's just going to start picking you apart, up and down the field, which that's obviously ideal. So that's why they brought him in, to be able to have an attack like we've seen from the Mahomes and Josh Allen's and the elite level quarterbacks in this league. And we will, look at Cincinnati as an example. Like they have Joe Mixon, and nobody sells out to stop Joe Mixon on the offense. Like they look at T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow and that passing attack, and that's what you need to stop. And they still can't stop it because the elite level quarterbacks pick you apart regardless of what you're doing. So the Browns want to get to that level, and they absolutely have to get to that level because you arguably have the best quarterback in the NFL in your own division in Joe Burrow. So Watson can be that, absolutely can be that, but he has to get there.
We'll talk about Deshaun Watson specifically in the third segment. Thanks for everybody joining us. We'll come back and get to the second segment as well. Make sure you guys, wouldn't let you know, make sure you guys are watching and subscribing to the YouTube channel. We're close to 4,000 views. We want to get, 4,000 subscribers. We want to get there. We want to get there by the end of this month. Help us reach our goal. Also, we want to thank every single person that makes Locked On Browns their first listen of each and every day. You can download us wherever you get your podcast and continue to support us on our audio platforms as well. And we have some great things coming up. And you can definitely find us on the Roku app. If you have Roku on your TV, and you can see my beautiful face and Jeff's pretty beautiful face right on your big screen TV using the Roku app on any smart TV. Just go ahead and find that, and you can find Locked On Browns and Locked On Cleveland Sports as well. John, let's get to the defensive side of the football. This was a game where defense and special teams really won it for you. Offense struggled to get the ball downfield. Offense struggled to complete and finish drives for touchdowns, but this is one of the best days I've seen production-wise for the Cleveland Browns. You had a scoop and score with Denzel Ward to the crib. You had you had a pick six with Tony Fields to the house. You also had a special teams punt return by Donovan Peoples-Jones. They got all those touchdowns, 2 touchdowns on defense. We haven't seen that in a while. What stood out to you as far as grades and film work goes for the game on defense for the Cleveland Browns?
Yeah, it's funny how this game went, and the first touchdown of the game happened with under 2 minutes when the Texans scored their one touchdown of the game. So 27-14, you're thinking, all right, there were at least 5 touchdowns on offense scored, and it was the only offensive touchdown that was scored in the game was right at the end of the game. From a grading perspective, I keep harping on you're only as good as your weakest link, and in this game, the players that generally have weak links like Tony Fields and Alex Wright and Taven Bryan, those guys played really well in this game. Fields was an 81.6, had the highest grade on the defense. Greg Newsome showed up really well with a 79 coverage grade in this game. Even Ronnie Harrison only played 9 snaps, but he was out there and played well in those 9 snaps at an 80.9. Alex Wright, 78. Taven Bryan was a 72. So they all played, much better than what they had been playing, albeit against arguably the worst team in the NFL. But the thing is, they showed up in a way that you expect good defense to show up, and where you didn't have to have your star powers really dominate a game to make sure that you win that game. Guys that you need to make you want to make plays that in these types of games made plays. So it wasn't hunky dory and everything all around. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah continues to struggle at times, which is interesting. For him, he's the type of guy that needs probably a really elite level or just a high level defensive line for him to be able to work and kind of shoot gaps and do what he does, because he's not a sound gap responsibility player. He tends to freelance things and try to make plays with his speed and quickness rather than sound defensive fundamentals. And that's going to end up with like some pretty bad plays out here and there. And he's got to be able to make the tackles when he does get in a position. So there's obviously, like, you get 2 defensive touchdowns and stuff like that. That's great for the defense. And, you can't complain about that. But I think one of their better performances all year long.
When we look at this thing, it just goes to show you it's about complementary football. I thought the punting was great last week. When you look at what he was able to do, I believe he had 5 punts. He averaged over 55 yards a punt. He was able to consistently pin them down deep and make them go the distance, which is very tough to do when you got a quarterback who is a journeyman and doesn't have much experience. So I think special teams as well as defense are complementary when it comes to playing the game of football. And a lot of people just believe, oh, well, if Deshaun Watson don't score 45 points, we can't win. Well, in the beginning of the season, we thought some of these guys had some talent. We thought these guys could potentially be a really good defense. That wasn't the case earlier in the season. So now we look at it, they finally step up. I'm not going to take anything away from them because they played the Texans. I mean, I can't. Texans are a bad team. But
we'll take it.
We can't crucify them at once juncture and then come back when they do something and they don't respect what they did. You right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Just because they were going up against arguably the worst team in the NFL doesn't mean you take away the good performance that they had. Like they showed up and played a great game, and that's all you can ask for. There were times in the game where like the running game for the Texans was getting yards, but overall, like, you can't complain about them only giving up 1 touchdown from a defensive perspective and scoring 2. So like they outscored the opposing offense. So it's, I think for them, you look at progress. Like, I mean, the fact that they hey, one thing I thought with Deshaun Watson is that they'd be like, all right, we're going to inject some life into this defense. It kind of gets them a little bit more energized, because a lot of defenses is, it's an effort thing and fitting your responsibilities properly. And if you can do that, you can be a solid defense. And they seem to have a little bit more juice to them to be able to make plays. And they followed it up. And, I think this year has been obviously a disappointment for the defense. And after, like, they were arguably a top 5 defense last year. So they've been arguably bottom 5 this year, and you can't complain about this performance.
Let me ask you a real question before we get to the third segment. Martin Emerson has played really, 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 really well. If you look at the eye test, if you look at his production, as far as his passes defended, if he continues at this, you guys always do projections. Is he going to be one of those guys that you guys project really high as a guy going into next year, especially with the way he's played so far as a rookie?
I mean, so when it comes to projections, especially at the cornerback position, it's really difficult. His grade of a 74.4 is excellent for a rookie cornerback. And it's, like with coverage guys, like the guy, from his size, speed, weight, all the tangibles and the traits that he has, like his ceiling, I think from that perspective alone is really high. And he moves his body. He is a big cornerback, and he moves his cornerback like he's a smaller guy. And he's also physical at the catch point, physical at the, making tackles and stuff like that. So like, I think his ceiling is extremely high in this league. You're talking like he can be, a dominant cornerback in this league just because he's got that size factor to him, and he has the ability to break up plays. And he's already shown year one that he can be a shutdown type cornerback. You saw what he did against Mike Evans last week, which is like, what was he? gave up 0 catches on 7 targets or something like that. Just ridiculous type of numbers there. And as allowing just a completion percentage of 56% in his, into his target area. So I don't know what what he's going to be next year or whatever, but I really think he can be turned into one of the elite level cornerbacks in the league based on just like the profile that he has.
All right, one more. ProTech Automotive says, G. Bush, John, what's your thoughts on the loss of Sione Takitaki? He was starting to make some plays out there. You just mentioned off air. We talked about I talked about a linebacker the Browns are going to pick up. And that's why you got to hit the notification bell so you get the latest information. I believe one Reggie Ragland has been picked up. Your thoughts on Takitaki and Reggie Ragland coming in?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, right? They keep dropping their linebackers. Unfortunately, that's the third one this year. It's obviously the reason why they brought in Deion Jones, because losing Anthony Walker and seeing, hey, the linebacker group is struggling. We maybe need a veteran presence there. Now they bring in Reggie Ragland after Sione Takitaki's injury. Obviously, Jacob Phillips got hurt earlier in the year. It hurts because he had been making plays and he had been, he's playing out of position. I know Kevin Stefanski has said that a couple of times in his press conferences. And he's playing at Mike linebacker now. And I think, it takes an adjustment to go from Sam to Mike. And for him, he's a veteran presence out there that generally knows where to go. There's, you look at tape and he can make plays, and he is a freelance type guy, but he can also get out of his gaps. Reggie Ragland is a guy that's going to be more a run stopper, and I don't expect him to get much playing time early on. He was on the practice squad for the Raiders all year long. Hadn't seen a single rep this year in game action, so it's another body for them. You're going to see a lot of, unfortunately, Deion Jones, Tony Fields, and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah as your linebackers, and then Jordan Kanuziak or whatever his name is another guy that's going to be in there. And it's going to be tough because they're already weak up the middle. It's just going to make them that much more weak.
Ah, man, he is slim pickings. Slim pickings is this time of the year. So, those guys we'll see what the Browns defense is able to do against a really great passing attack, running attack, solid team, championship contending team in the Cincinnati Bengals coming up this week. But before we do, we'll get back to Deshaun Watson. Come on back. After these little couple words, and then we'll get to the third segment with John Costco of Pro Football Focus. When we watch this and we watch the 2-minute warning, the 2-minute warning has been the greatest thing ever since sliced bread. When it goes to 2-minute warning, we go 2-minute warning. You'll find me, Jeff Lloyd, as well as Mikey McNuggets from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show and Adam the Bull. And we do our 2-minute warning post-game show. Make sure you check that out. You can get that if you subscribe to Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show on YouTube. Hit the notification bell. So right when we go on, you'll be notified. Same thing here. If you don't want to subscribe over there, which you should, because I'm over there, you should be subscribing to everything that I'm doing. But if you don't want to do that, right, you can also just subscribe to the Locked On Browns podcast. Hit that notification bell, and we will simulcast and simultaneously cast our post-game show over here as well. So all you got to do is be a member. All you got to do is come over here, hit the notification bell, and you're all ready to go. Let's go right. Oh, what do we got there? What do you got? We got a little one.
we got one of the 4 cats at this. He's been ultra jealous of the new kittens that we have here.
Sibling rivalries has already started.
Yes.
Right? Yes. Well, we get into we'll see if we can tame the Cincinnati Bengals. Those cats down in Cincinnati this week. Right. Deshaun Watson. We all know he played rusty. We all know he was bad. We all know, he looked off kilter. I thought that he looked uncomfortable in the pocket a little bit. I thought the pressure was getting to him. And, we always talk about this with young quarterbacks or mobile quarterbacks or athletic quarterbacks. As soon as they feel that pressure, the natural instinct is to roll out. It's because it's a much easier picture. They could get away from some of that pressure. And I think that's just because the game is fast. You can't simulate the game speed. Defensive ends moving around, everything's going at 100 miles an hour. And I just think some of those things cause him to rush passes. I thought some of that caused him to not see the field well enough. I gave him a C- when we did the post game show. I wouldn't be mad at you if you said D plus. I could go either or. I think it's just a preference. What did you see from Deshaun Watson, and which grade would you give him?
Well, the grade for his game in this one was not good. It was a 43, which generally is an F. Goodness gracious, cat. All right, you're going away. That's basically an F in our book. You talk about like from a he was just like just wildly inaccurate all game long, and when that happens, it's like it's hard to move the football. Even like when Jacoby Brissett had struggled in games this year, at least he could like find a check down option and get yards that way. And wasn't even when he had a clean pocket, he would do well. In this game, didn't matter what it was for Deshaun Watson. He struggled with a clean pocket and under pressure. Under pressure he was a 30.8, which is terrible, and then from a clean pocket, it was a 65.8, which is not good. At least from that perspective, he had completed 69% of his passes, for 94 yards and an average of 7.2 yards per attempt. So there is a positive to take away from that. It was under pressure. He was under pressure on a 10 of his 24 dropbacks, which is a 41% clip, which is way too high for him. So like I said, Jedrick Wills needs to be better. We talked about that. The offensive line in general needs to be better to protect the quarterback, because if you're getting over 40% complete pressure percentage, it's difficult for a quarterback to kind of get into a rhythm and flow. And so a lot of those passes that he was missing were under pressure. And generally throughout his career, he's actually been really solid under pressure to handle that. So I think the Browns should be better to protect this week, and that will go a long ways to just getting him into a rhythm in the game, because I think that's what's key. And he was bad. There's still no excuses for that, in my opinion. Like, I mean, I get their excuses. There are reasons why he struggled, right? Like being under pressure, 700 days off, all that stuff, right? But it's still the NFL. You have to go out there and perform when your number's called, and generally he didn't. So I'm not worried about it though. Like, it's one game after 700 days off. Like you're talking about being in the most, probably the biggest, you already get the external pressure of it, where it's being played, who you're playing against, and all the other stuff. So it's like everything else is added up into that. Now it's like, all right, we got one game out of the way. Now we can go away from Houston. We can, be in Cincinnati. It's going to be on the road still, yes, but it's nowhere near as a pressure situation as it was for this past week.
All right, let's see if we can rapid fire this. Get a couple questions in for John, see what he thinks about him. Abdul Smith, first question here. Do you guys think that Jedrick Wills will be on the team next year? This dude is not the answer to me. Really, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be on a team next year. You spent a first round pick on a guy and you don't give up on him after 3 years generally. Generally, that guy's going to play out that rookie contract. They might not pick up the 5th-year option, that's for sure. But I think I don't think they will. And if they do, I don't know what the heck they're looking at when they're excuse me, when they're seeing his film, because he's been bad. So you have to incentivize that guy to really step it up in some way, and maybe saying, hey, we don't think you're it. You're not picking up your 5th-year option. Prove to us this year that we want to keep you long term, or that you have something, because I think they've probably seen it in practice. They've seen it on the field. He's not it.
Let's go to another question. Ragnar says, hey guys, Russ Wilson looking for a new team to mess up, perhaps. He's played terrible this year. What do you see in Russell Wilson? And is this the biggest contract blunder in a long time if he cannot right the ship?
What's interesting about that is actually he's played better as of late. And I was looking at this earlier, and I have to pull up his grades and stuff like that. But it's been bad, and part of it is I know he's been hurt. He's got like a partially torn lat or something like that, which is, I mean, you're talking about trying to torque with your body to throw it. Like, that's going to cause issues. But I will say, over the past 3 weeks, Russell Wilson has the 4th highest grade of any quarterback at an 81.4. He has 7 big time throws, 0 turnover worthy throws, and has just generally looked better. Goodness. And I think it's half a season, new staff, new city, new team, all sorts of things that go into a play with him being hurt. You're not going to give up on the dude. Like you obviously you can't. You'd be out like $150 million in dead cap or something like that next year. So you're stuck with him for like another 4 years. I still think he's got really good quarterback play in his tank.
Last question. My man Neo says, what do you think about Baker going to the Rams?
I mean, it's a place with a bad offensive line and lack of weapons right now because Cooper Kupp isn't there. Because he's been hurt, right? So they're gonna bring him in and see if they can hey, can we get you to play some good quarterback play? Maybe somebody signs you, and then Rams recoup a compensatory pick because they traded away all their picks in recent years for players. So he's been bad. Like, Baker Mayfield's been, like, when he's been on the field, has been the worst quarterback in the NFL this year. So whatever.
I echo the same sentiment. There's nothing to talk about. He's probably been one of the worst quarterbacks. He's going to go down as a bust. Just how big of a bust is arguable. But at the end of the day, he has not played well enough at his first 2 stops, and his skill set has proved that over the long period of time. Well, that went fast. John Costco, we appreciate you dropping in. Don't forget, Jeff will be back with me very soon. But for Jeff Lloyd, for John Costco, this has been the Browns podcast, Locked On Browns podcast. I'm supposed to say LGB, but I could do GEB on the LOB. Let's go, Brown.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.